If you just got denied or you came out of your C&P exam feeling like the VA didn't see the full picture, I need you to do one thing before you touch your claim again. Pull your DD214 and look at box 24 and box 28, because there's a chance the problem isn't your evidence, it could be what your discharge document says before the rater even opens your file. And that's a different problem with a different fix. The tool that fixes it is called a DD214, the Application for Correction of Military Records. Most veterans have never heard of it, but today you're going to understand not only what it is, which errors actually require one, and how to submit a packet the board will actually act on, but also what not to file, because burning 18 months on a correction you didn't need is its own kind of loss. Let's start with the foundation, your DD214. Your DD214 is your record of service. Everything lives on it. Your character of discharge, your MOS, your awards, the narrative reason they gave for why you left. That one document determines whether you can access the GI Bill, VA healthcare, disability compensation, and a home loan. And out-processing clerks make mistakes. Wrong MOS, missing awards, a discharge characterization that doesn't match what actually happened. You signed it, exhausted, ready to be done, and nobody explained what those boxes meant. That's not on you, but correcting the record, that is on you. The DD214, the Application for Correction of Military Records, is how you fix that. When you file a DD214, it goes to your branch's Board for Correction of Military Records, the BCMR. That board is the highest appellate review authority in the military. That is not a local HR office. This is the top of the chain for records corrections. The legal authority comes from Title 10 U.S. Code Section 1552. Under that law, any current or former service member can petition the BCMR to correct an error or injustice in their military record. You don't need a lawyer to file, you do need evidence and a coherent argument, which we'll get into. Here's the distinction that matters most. The DD214 physically changes your DD214. It's not a workaround, it's not a side note, it corrects the actual record. If the board approves your request, you receive a DD215, which is the official amendment document. The DD215 attaches to your original DD214 and reflects exactly what the board corrected. That corrected record then flows into every system that touches your benefits. One thing I want you locked in on before we go further is correcting a military record does not automatically guarantee VA benefits, but it can significantly affect how the VA evaluates your eligibility and service connection. Those are two different legal worlds. Title 10 governs the record correction and Title 38 governs the benefits. You need to understand that distinction before you walk into either arena. So what actually requires a DD214? Not everything does, and I'll get to that. But these 6 errors are non-negotiable. If any of these are wrong, you are leaving money on the table every single month you wait. First is box 24, character of service. This is the single most important box on your DD214. If it reads general, other than honorable, or bad conduct instead of honorable, you're looking at a severely limited or eliminated GI Bill eligibility, and depending on your characterization, real barriers to VA disability compensation and healthcare too. The VA does perform its own character of discharge determination under 38 CFR 3.12, so a non-honorable discharge does not automatically bar every benefit. But it creates a fight you don't want and don't need. If the record is simply wrong, fix it. Second is box 28, narrative reason for separation. This one is sneaky because veterans think if box 24 looks fine, then they're in the clear, and they're not. Under 38 CFR 4.127, VA regulations generally treat personality disorders as congenital or developmental conditions not compensable on their own. So if box 28 says personality disorder when that's not what actually happened, it complicates your mental health claims because the rater now has a regulatory framework that works against you. That said, superimposed conditions, meaning a separate mental health disorder that developed on top of any underlying personality disorder, can still be service connected. But you don't want to be fighting that extra battle if the narrative reason in the first place doesn't reflect what actually happened. Clean it up. Third are your separation and RE codes. RE codes themselves don't directly create statutory bars under VA law. That's the discharge characterization and underlying conduct doing the heavy lifting. But certain discharge circumstances and separation codes can negatively affect benefit eligibility and create additional scrutiny in VA claims. If yours was applied in error and doesn't accurately reflect your actual service, a DD214 is the right tool to challenge it. Fourth is missing combat indicators. If your combat action ribbon isn't listed, if your combat deployment dates are absent, if your hostile fire pay periods are missing from the record, your Nexus arguments for PTSD, TBI, and combat-related conditions get weaker. The VA does have a duty to assist under 38 CFR 3.159, and combat presumptions exist under 38 CFR 3.304 for PTSD stressors in certain circumstances, but clear documented combat service in your record significantly strengthens those claims and reduces evidentiary disputes. Don't make the VA hunt for what should already be there. Fifth is your MOS and dates of service. If your records say you were a supply clerk when you were actually a combat engineer, that matters for toxic exposure claims, hearing loss, and musculoskeletal conditions. Occupational exposure arguments live or die on what your MOS says you were actually doing. Six is the condition, not a disability language. If your DD214 shows you were separated because a condition is not a disability, that language can become a point of dispute in later VA claims if newer medical evidence contradicts the original finding. It's not an automatic denial, but it hands the rater a peg to hang skepticism on. If that evidence exists, you have grounds to go back to the board and request a correction. If your DD214 has any of those 6 errors, you don't have a documentation problem, you have a benefits problem. And the DD149 exists to fix it. Not every error on your DD214 requires a federal board petition. I want to be straight with you about that because filing a DD149 when you don't need to burns time you cannot get back. Misspelled middle name, wrong zip code in your address block, those don't touch your benefits, they don't touch your claim, they're annoying, but they're not worth an 18-month wait, so leave them alone. Missing medals that are already documented somewhere in your service record, that's an SF-180, a standard form 180, submitted to the National Personal Records Center. Faster process, less friction. Don't reach for the sledgehammer when a screwdriver does the job. Now, if your issue is a discharge characterization that needs to be upgraded and you're still inside the 15-year window from your discharge date, you have another option before you go to the BCMR, the Discharge Review Board, the DRB. The DRB handles upgrades within that window. After 15 years, the DRB loses jurisdiction and the BCMR is your only path. Know which door you're walking through before you start. But I need you to go into this with clear eyes on the success rates because the numbers vary wildly by branch. Army DRB runs around 29 to 39%. Navy DRB sits around 27%. Air Force DRB is rough, somewhere between 8 and 15%. Those numbers are not meant to discourage you, they are meant to tell you that walking in with a thin evidence packet is not a strategy. The board does not advocate for you, it reviews what you put in front of it, and those approval numbers reflect exactly that reality. DRB processing times by branch are Army runs 6 to 12 months, Navy and Marine Corps runs from 12 to 18 months, and Air Force is typically 6 to 10 months. One more thing on timing. The BCMR operates under a 3-year discovery rule. You're supposed to file within 3 years of finding out about the error. But the board has the authority to waive that deadline in the interest of justice. So if you're sitting there thinking you missed your window, don't assume the door is closed. Make the argument and let the board decide. How to submit a DD149 that actually gets reviewed. If you've determined the BCMR is your route, here's how you build a submission that actually moves. Start with the form itself. Download DD Form 149 directly from the DoD website. The February 2025 version is current as of this video. Page 3 of that form has the mailing address for each branch. Army cases go to the Army Review Board's agency in Arlington. Navy and Marine Corps goes to the Board of Correction of Naval Records in Arlington. And Air Force goes to Joint Base Andrews. Coast Guard goes to DHS. Do not mail your packet to the wrong address and wonder why nothing happens. Section 3 is where most veterans blow it. Box 13 asks what corrections you want. Box 15 asks why the board should make it. Here's what I see constantly. Veterans write something like, I believe my discharge was unjust, or my record doesn't reflect my service. That is not an argument, that's a feeling. The board needs the specific error, the specific regulation or policy that was violated or misapplied, and the specific correction you are requesting. Be surgical. The narrative reason in box 28 was recorded as personality disorder. My in-service medical records reflect no such diagnosis. The correct narrative reason should be secretarial authority. That's an argument. Give them something to work with. The burden of proof is largely on you, and the board can obtain advisory opinions and pull certain records, but you cannot count on that happening. Do not assume a document is already in your record. If it's not in your packet, treat it as if it does not exist. Build your evidence packet like no one is going to fill the gaps for you. Build your evidence around the specific error. For discharge upgrades, you want in-service medical records, post-service treatment records, your personal statement, and corroborating buddy statements from people with direct knowledge. For missing awards, you need original orders and deployment records. Don't submit random documents that feel relevant but aren't directly tied to the correction you're requesting. Noise hurts you. If your case involves PTSD, TBI, or MST, you fall under what the board calls liberal consideration. The board is directed to give those cases extra weight when a mental health condition contributed to the conduct that resulted in a less than honorable discharge. That doesn't mean automatic approval. It means there's a recognized framework that supports your argument, and you should address it explicitly in your personal statement. If you were discharged under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, there is now an expedited, streamlined pathway specifically for DADT corrections. State that clearly in your filing. Your personal statement is not optional, and it is not a formality. The small box on the form is not enough space. Attach as many additional pages as your case requires. Walk the board through what happened, why your record is wrong, and why correcting it is just. That is your chance to be heard by people with actual authority to fix it. Use it. You can also request to appear before the board in person in Washington, D.C., or by video. You can cover your own travel costs for in person. For complex cases, putting a face to the file is an option worth considering. Processing reality is BCMR decisions currently run 12 to 24 months or longer, depending on the branch and the complexity of your case. That is a long time, which is exactly why the most important tactical decision you can make right now is this. Do not wait for the correction before you file your VA claim. Get your claim in now. Note the pending DD214 correction in your submission when you do. If you wait for the board to rule before you file with the VA and the board takes 18 months, you just gave up 18 months of back pay. Your effective date is the date you file your claim. Protect it. If the board denies your request, you receive a decision letter with your appeal rights. New material evidence gives you grounds to go again. A denial is not the end of the road. Your DD214 is not a permanent sentence. It's a document, and documents can be corrected, but only if you take the action to correct them. The errors we covered today are not minor inconveniences. They are active drains on money you already earned. So here's your homework. Pull your Member 4 copy of your DD214 right now. Go through box 24, box 28, your awards block, and your MOS. If something is wrong, you now have the process to fix it. And whatever you do, do not wait on the board before you submit your VA claim. Run both tracks at the same time, protect your effective date, and in our next video, we will cover how to actually fill out a DD214 step by step. And if you need help navigating the claims process once your records are in order, vetclaims.ai is where you go. We've helped veterans walk through exactly this kind of documentation challenge, not by filing for you, but by making sure you know what you're doing and why. So give us a call and get the rating you deserve. And leave a comment letting us know which topic you want us to cover next.